This is the final Critique with Another Artist video, where my friend Sharon, Will, and I critique each other's work. In the previous video, I critiqued Sharon's work, and you can see the before and after versions of her beautiful paintings. In this video, Sharon critiques two of my paintings. One thing that I do after I receive a critique is write down the suggestion and post it on an easel. I find that this helps me remember and focus on what needs to be changed. When we did the initial critique in April, Sharon looked at 5 paintings of mine. I've selected 2 of them for this video. So now we are at my paintings, and one of the things that I did was, after Sharon left that day when we did our critiques, is I made a list because, as you guys know, I love my list, and the list helps me keep the idea straight. So here is a painting I brought up for her. There are some minor changes from when we started with it, and this is what the very original one looked like. I made a couple slight changes while Sharon was here, and then it was on those changes that I actually kind of went with. You know, she had made some suggestions, I saw they worked, and so then I worked on this afterwards, following the list. So this is a painting of a local area on a very gray day. And for some reason, I'm kind of obsessed with these sort of like really ishy gray days. I think living in Michigan, you either embrace the beauty of a gray day or you just go nuts, because we have a lot of it. So I remember walking this day and it just being like unusually beautiful and kind of mysterious looking, with the sun, you know, just burning through this layer of clouds. And everything was just beginning to turn. It was in September, and there was this just kind of really beautiful softness to the landscape, and that was what I wanted to capture. And I've had this in my landscape class. I think I posted this on Patreon, or parts of it. But what I wanted to do was do a painting where, you know, everything sort of revolves around that sun burning through, and yet it is, the message of this is the beauty of that gray and subdued color palette. But I wanted Sharon to look at it, because when I looked at this, it was a snooze fest. It was not, you know, just like you were playing with the brilliant color in your painting, I was playing with these really ishy colors and kind of seeing how far I could push that, and I think I pushed a little too far. Your suggestion had been to come in here, and while you were here, you had suggested that I add a little of yellow into this foreground. There was a touch of it there.
To lighten the value.
But you said it was spotty, and you were spot on. So sorry. But so I had made these little changes then while you were here, and loved what it did. Like right away I could see that that worked.
You popped the foreground out.
Yeah. So what else were your suggestions here with it?
My thought was, when I first saw it, I could have swore that this was more flat, but maybe I'm not remembering correctly. So what I did first see was the interesting...
You have to make the marks on there, yeah, because they can't see.
The interesting silhouette that's happening here. Interesting shapes, very sensitively done, beautiful. And then I asked her, where do you want me to look? What is this painting about for you? What is it that interested you? And you said it was the sky. So I thought it was interesting, because the land mass actually takes up more of the space. It's the dominant shape. So it could really go either way. But the fact that she's got these interesting cloud shapes here and they're connected right to the landmass works perfectly. So my thought was to darken these shapes here, and I'm really scribbling up here, but darken them as well as darkening this area like you did, and it was really beautiful. And whisking out maybe breaking the horizon with this tree just a hair.
Yep.
And I think it's beautifully done.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, so let's see what I did here. So this is the piece then after I actually worked on it the next day because I was so excited to see how that yellow worked. So what I did then was I came in and I just glazed the yellow right across there. This is reading slightly too dark, but I glazed the yellow right across there, brought this up just a whisper, and then I darkened in here, and I darkened a little bit in here, just a glaze. I think all these changes took about 15 minutes. I mean, it was a simple thing, but for me, I loved it because your ideas are exactly what this needed to finish. I time-lapsed the changes that I made after the critique with Sharon, and these changes are incredibly subtle, and there's a lot of glazing going on where I'm just adding very thin layers of pastel on top of what's already there just to push the color. These changes are incredibly subtle, but I find once you have kind of the main bones of the composition down, that the real secret to a painting lies in these little subtle transitions.
I think it's a subtle yet ishy painting, as you would say.
It's all about the ish.
I think you could even darken these clouds even more.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more. Very, very beautiful, very moody. And when I see the flowers you have here, I kind of want to see a main mass right in here.
Oh, okay.
Kind of unifying it. And what I see is a little highlight right there, and a little dip of dark. And so my eye kind of goes from here to here to here to over here. But it feels kind of spotty.
Okay.
Maybe unifying.
So still feels spotty.
Unifying the shapes just a little bit. So subtle, because this is about a very subtle painting.
Darn it, Sharon! I thought I was done.
You're there. Maybe a little wisping up, soften this edge here.
Yeah.
Where the tree comes in front of the background.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of cutting just a touch of light too with one of these branches.
That could do it as well.
Pop it forward.
But I definitely think even a darker cloud mass here would even create more of a mood.
Okay, I will play with that.
That's lovely.
So yeah, this one's just all about that mood. That kind of, it's funny, it's almost like this sad beauty or something when the seasons are changing.
Yeah.
It's a definite, a mood that, yeah, living in Michigan, we get to see a lot.
And you want me to look at the clouds, so by darkening them, even more is going to emphasize them, I think.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, well, thank you. Here is the painting before. After this critique, I did make the changes that Sharon had suggested. I simplified the flowers in the field and made the clouds slightly larger, a little bit darker, and I also broke a bit more of the horizon with the tree that's on the right. And those changes made a big difference. I'm really happy with this painting now. So that was great advice from my art buddy, Sharon Will. Now we're going to turn to the second painting in Sharon's critique of my work. And Sharon has been helping me with this painting of my daughter. She actually took a look at it when it was at this stage and had suggested that I soften and lighten the feet. And then you'll hear her comments from the last critique and then what she thinks of what I've done now. All right, so for our last critique then, I'm going to bring up the one that you guys have seen now for several months, couple months. And that is the oil painting of my daughter walking in the woods. This is the one that you guys have seen for a long time and that I've been working on pretty much all winter. It was kind of my big project. And it was going with our whole idea there of building off of the analogous palette using a dominant analogous color and then its complement in order to really enhance the palette. I, of course, went incredibly ishy on this one and decided to use a dominant orange palette and then with a subdominant blue palette. And so this was a very unusual palette for me to work with. It was pretty much umber and burnt sienna into everything on here. There really isn't much on here that is there actually is nothing on here that's a pure color. Everything has been ished down. The oranges had the blues introduced into them. The blues had the oranges introduced to them. These areas here that look so green are actually, if we bring this up on here, orange. So yeah, it was a real great test for me again to just push and see what I could do with that type of a palette to see if I could once again glorify our beautiful gray Michigan weather, but with my daughter as the awesome model. And so, but I kind of got stuck on this. I thought I was finished with it. I think more than being finished, I felt bored. I had been working on it a long time and wanted to move on. Sometimes my brain just wants something new and shiny. I knew there were issues going on up in here that I needed to resolve. I knew there were some shapes in this area that I needed to resolve, but I needed Sharon's good eye to help me with this. So take it away, Sharon.
Well, I'll grab your pointer here. The changes I thought that needed to be were so very slight. I thought it just needed some more sky holes in here just to point to her, to kind of lead your eye to her so your eye could go around. And I remember a little differently that there was a horizontal branch, just straight horizontal, that I felt needed to go up or bend down with these. Just very, very subtle, but it's beautiful now. This was really the second critique, as we may have talked about this at another point, and she did a beautiful job of softening edges here, softening some of the outside edges here. And I remember you lowered the value of the feet so they kind of set into the snow. And then my other thought was to create a little bit of a little soft shadow pattern there, which you have, and it feels like she's settled. She's, you know, grounded. The only thing that I would say at this point, there feels like there's a sharp edge right there of the shadow shape.
Oh yeah, there is.
Maybe a little more organic in its shape. You know, taking that straight edge off.
Yep.
Could help.
Okay, yeah, and you had talked about too, because I wrote it down in the list with the, so from this original one here, nope, that these two spaces here were kind of equal, and these two bows here were equal.
Yeah.
So I wrote that down in my list and then switched those out. You had also talked about these shapes here being relatively
The same.
equal.
I'm glad you took notes. Yeah,
Yep.
because I forgot about that.
It's all about that list. So, yeah, so again, it was the kind of thing where it's interesting in that I wanted to call this done because I was bored and just didn't want to work with it anymore. But having you look at this, give me some ideas. Yeah, it was funny. Once I came downstairs, then all I could see were these two shapes that were the same, how these things were just the same. And so I made myself have a painting session then where I broke these things up. I followed what was on the list, and that takes us then to the painting that is on the easel. Just so you guys know, I've had to skew this a little bit because this is an oil painting. It isn't varnished yet. So it's picking up the light a little odd. So I skewed it a bit to kind of get the best color that I could for you guys. And so, all right. Anyways, so go ahead, Sharon.
Well, we had talked about putting a shadow down here. My thought was bringing some of that grade violet under here, but you said that you had tried that and it
didn't work.
Too dominant.
Yeah, it just looked like odd man out down there.
Okay, but there is a shape here, and so you made it more of just a grade, very neutral.
Yeah, introduce more umber into it.
Kind of like the same values you have going on here.
Exactly.
So that works well. My only thought is there's a straight edge right there.
There is. That has to be broken up.
Yeah, just rounded, a little more organic in shape would work well. But these are gorgeous. All of these branches and their movement, very lovely.
Thank you. So yeah, that's what I focused on, was then just putting in the rhythms back there, because I want that area to be simple, but also have some depth and some interest. So when you come up to it, then you find it interesting. And so, yeah.
And I remember in the critique earlier, we did two of these. You had created some trees here with a little bit of space. I think that works well.
Yeah, before they were a little bit like soldiers in there, a little lined up.
Yeah, that works well.
Yep. So yeah, again, just trying to introduce having them there without having them be too much. So
I say, calling this one done. You're the queen of Ishi.
I get award for ish.
Yes, the queen of Ishi.
I ished so hard on this. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I just love seeing what you can do with different palettes, and this one was really interesting. I've never done this before, just tossing sienna and umber into everything.
Well, and I think it works so well too because you've got such high value contrast.
Yeah, that's what this is actually all about.
Yeah, it's all about the value, and the figure is very believable and beautifully done.
Why, thank you, Sharon. I'm going to fix that shadow though, because now all I'm going to do is see that straight edge of that shadow. But nice thing is, working with this palette, I can do that. So I will do that, then I will call it done.
Then it's done.
Then it's done. So one more thing, I'll write it on the list.
Well done.
This painting has been critiqued 3 times. This was after the first critique, but before I wrote the list. And here is the painting after this critique. I did come in and fix the shape of that shadow. So there you go. That was our critique of each other's work. You can see it's an ongoing process. It's not like a just one and done.
Sometimes it's many critiques in stages, as we draw to completion, and usually have wine after.
We do. And yeah, I have homemade wine, some new batches. She makes her own
wine now.
Aldi's specialty, what can I say? So I hope this was helpful to you. Again, the purpose of a critique And a critique with a friend is to bring in somebody who you trust, who knows your work, who knows what your intent is, to help you become a better painter. They're that fresh set of eyes that are going to help you out.
And we all need that.
We do, yeah.
Here's to
Cheers.
another critique.
Yay!
Happy painting.
Happy painting. Thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing to the Painter's Classroom.